This is Aaron Levine, LG Insurance, with another episode of the And Insurance podcast. And today we're going to be talking about business processes, or something along those lines, and some insurance stuff with our good friend Steven Frey, the SMB guy, as he likes to call himself. You know, welcome. Thank you. Thanks for not wearing your sunglasses today. When I was on your show, it's always Friday. Get it? Friday, Freyday. I can almost do his whole shtick that he does every Friday on talkradio.nyc. Check him out on Facebook Live. You have great guests. You have an intriguing conversation. And I'm like, I got to return the favor and have Steve join me on the And Insurance podcast and talk a little bit about what Steve does, what Steve likes to do, about his show, and everything else in between. Steve, thanks so much for joining me in the studio today.
Thanks so much for having me, Aaron. I feel like it's a long time coming. Been very excited.
You canceled on me a few times. I won't hold that too much against you. Just send me some more referrals over, and then we'll be good to go.
Coming right up.
You asked me what's the format? I'm like, we're just gonna sit in front of the microphone and we're gonna talk a little bit, and don't worry, we'll figure it out. And he's like, I'm not worried at all. We'll definitely do that. We want to provide some tips for business owners. In this crazy business environment that we're in right now. Things are wild.
Yeah, to say the least.
Forget inflation, just business in general with labor shortages and technology and everything else going on. Things are a little bit nutty. So give us a little bit about your background. Who is Steven Frey? Who is the main company that you work for? And I say that purposefully because you have a lot of irons in the fire. And let's get a little bit about your background and talk about business.
Yeah, so went to the University of Maryland, was always a people person, as you can imagine, loved to have conversations, loved to tell stories, majored in information systems for business services as well as finance, so a lot of processes and systematic scalability and also learning about the different types of products that are available out there and where they fit in somebody's overall picture. Worked for a company when I graduated from Maryland that was part of their small business incubation program. And I was immediately bitten by the idea of entrepreneurship, watched the company go from 8 people to 35 people. Wow. Went to go work for a friend's mortgage company during that fun subprime mortgage crisis way back in the day. Always loved real estate too, always been a passion of mine. Again, entrepreneurial venture, 9-10 people when it started, right. 25 people by the time I left, and just really got bitten by the idea of working with entrepreneurs on a daily basis. So went to go work for Paychex for 10 years after that, which...
I'm sorry.
I appreciate the condolences. But yeah, about a decade there. So, some people would, have perceptions about organizations like that. One really big positive thing that comes out of it are the amount of relationships that you make, both internally with the folks that you work with and externally with referral sources. And I was seeing 500 to 600 business owners a year for 10 years.
So it's, and I make fun of that, lightly, but it's also working for these large corporations that have good processes and good training programs is a tremendous benefit for young people coming right out of college, right? Everybody wants to own their own business, especially nowadays. Everybody can do it better themselves. I'm guilty. I've been there, done that, made a lot of mistakes along the way. But I worked right out of college for a large corporation who had great processes. Technology wasn't so great back then, and you get to learn a lot. So people that do go to work in the ADP or the Paychex get that sales training that's tremendously valuable for the rest of your life.
The sales training and the field experience, I would say too, just the ability to see 500 to 600 business owners a year. You can line up 10 different business owners from the same industry and ask them, what do you do? And you'll get very similar answers from each one of them, but you really start to get to know them as people, why they do what they do, how they got there, and you're going to get 10 different stories that really give you a little insight as to what makes them tick and what's important to them. So spend some time in the financial services world after that. I do have securities and insurance licensing as well, so love to be able to rap with you on similar topics. But yeah, in the mutual fund and 401k world, doing some national distribution, and it's another perspective there, flying around the country, before pandemic times, where that was a common thing to be on the road, 1 to 2 weeks a month. It's a totally different type of lifestyle, which is coming back now, but it's not going to be how it was for a good long time, if ever.
I can definitely feel that. You said a key word a little while ago. You used the word conversations. I was listening to a great podcast host that I listen to often, Seth Godin, the Akimbo podcast. And I forget which week it was, but it was a question from a listener. He always takes questions from listeners at the end of the show, and one of the questions was meeting versus, like Seth says, I don't take meetings. But then during his rant, he's like, I don't take meetings, but I'll have conversations. Right. And I love that concept. And you said that, having conversations with 500 to 600 business owners instead of having meetings. Yeah. Right. The connotation of a meeting is forceful, and you're making me sit there and you're going to put a proposal in front of me. It's like, no, I want to have conversations. I want to learn from all these different business owners and figure out how they operate and how I can then work myself with their system to make their systems better and refine their business processes. I think is super, super important. And I think that's a lot where I lead today too, is I want to learn about your business. I want to know what you're doing and how can I help you with the products that I sell to make a living, make your life easier, because, business is in chaos in a lot of states right now, especially with so much technology coming in. Technology keeps getting bolted on in so many different ways. Yep. We need to figure out how to streamline it and bring it together. So, tell me a little bit about what you're doing today to earn your key living, and let's move that into the business process conversation.
Yeah, so I work with Heartland Payroll and Payment Solutions as a senior product advisor and now a territory manager as well. Thank you, sir. I have my own weekly podcast and radio show that I do, always Friday, as you said, talkradio.nyc.
We'll put the link somewhere in one of these thingies, wherever you put the links.
Yeah, somewhere in the interweb out there. I have my own consulting organization that I've had for the last 5 years. So, doing work on the business and management consulting side for whether it's startup or established businesses. And I act as director of business solutions for a wealth management firm called SDA Wealth Strategies that's based out of Hudson County, New York as well. But you yourself had said something important in the last couple of tidbits that you threw out there. You talked about the products that you sell, and then also the idea of technologies that are available out there. And a lot of times I'll look at the two as, a lot of times people are beginning their conversations with the products and wares that they sell and the technologies and apps that are available, and they're skipping over the whole people part and the whole process part of execution. And don't get me wrong, I love to know about products and technologies that are out there. Right. Like, it's something that's been fairly dominant throughout my life, but there is no substitute for surrounding yourself with good people, whether it's people who are assisting you in what you do or strategic relationship types of partners where you can complement them. And then really getting to know the people who you're working with. And that's, goes back to the conversation part. Instead of some of the acronyms that are out there at Paychex, it was called an EUP, an end user presentation. Okay. At Heartland, it's called an FTA, a first time appointment. But that's, and that's all well and good as far as how organizations kind of keep track of activity. Right. But what's really important is getting to know the people and what makes them tick and what's important to them and what their vision is and what their goals are.
I met with a young man today, about a year out of college, working for a vendor partner of mine. I was asked to come in and speak with him. We met for coffee. Great kid, has a great attitude and really super personable. And he was asking me great questions, which I love. I'm like, and I said to the person that he was with, I said, he's asking phenomenal questions right now. And he wanted to know some ideas on what I think. And I said, look, when you're out there cold calling, that's great and all. Making marketing drops, it's great and all. I want you to walk in the door, say hello, introduce yourself. Here's my card. I may be hosting an event in a couple of weeks. I'm going to connect with you on LinkedIn. Nice to meet you, and then turn around and walk out the door. I don't want you to ask for a meeting or try to take any more than those 42 seconds of introduction, because then you're going to turn around and leave, and the guy's going to be like, this guy respected my time. He might have something for me in the future. I'm not trying to shove anything down my throat. He's going to give before he receives, somebody I may interact with, or I'll at least accept his invitation on LinkedIn when he sends it out to me tonight. Right. So, and that's for me sitting on the other side of that desk, being called upon. I love that approach. And that's the building block of that relationship is the hello, let's connect, then we can take the next step in our relationship, right? It's the people, how they do the dating now, the swiping, right? I don't know anything about that, so it's really, keeping things as simple as possible.
Yes.
And then we interweave that technology back into it. I just love that approach to it is just to short, sweet, to the point, non-aggressive. Let's not push product. Let's push relationships. Yeah. And then use our technology so we can build more relationships and be better at it. Like I love when I talk to somebody like, oh, we talked about this 3 years ago. And I'm like, thank you, Salesforce, for remembering that. But I'm glad you brought it up because it makes us all happy to remember what we were talking about.
In general, you said a couple of important things there too. And like, in order for things to really take, you have to give a little bit. And that comes from more of a service mindset. And,
right.
Service is different than product. Even though people sell products, services, but something that's packaged, having a service mindset's a little bit different. It's, really, again, going back to the conversation, getting to know the people, getting to know where they're trying to go. When you're an insurance broker, you're a financial advisor, that's most of the job is helping people with here's where they are now, here's where they want to go, and here's collectively how we should all get there together. As opposed to trying to push something that's packaged and commoditized. And,
right.
Again, that's another thing too, is in the industries that we work in and around, a lot of times things can feel commoditized,
right.
because of the way some practices of distribution have been carried out over the years, but just also in general people's mindset, the way they look at things is, some of it's about the race to zero, some of it is, some of it, a lot of it's about the race to zero.
A lot of it's about the race to zero until you build a relationship.
Yeah.
Right. Then there's a value in the relationship.
Yeah.
Which is important, and that's where working together. Because we have some cross-pollination, I guess I don't know what you call it, of services to help each other work together to help businesses do what they need to do. And there's other key partners that we can bring in certain situations to create an a la carte style PEO. If a traditional PEO is not the right fit for an organization, I think we're working on one right now where we're putting together an entire package to give somebody the PEO feel, but at the end of the day, I think we're saving them about $90,000 across the board between the service providers that we're bringing from yourself, myself, Toby, and then I think we're bringing in a 401k company as well, Human Interest, to help along the lines. And I know I was with Brian a couple weeks ago. We're going to get Human Interest on the podcast and start talking about their 401k automation and how they can help small business now, especially with the new requirements for retirement planning and support by the employers to be able to put things in place for smaller businesses that couldn't traditionally afford to put a 401k in.
Yep. And solutions like PEO, when they're a fit, they can be a great fit, but they're not always the right fit. Right. It's just about the way things are packaged and delivered.
Right.
What we're going to be able to do for this particular client, a lot more consultation, definitely some cost savings. But, don't forget the first couple letters of PEO, it's in people. This is all about the people.
Right.
How you're catering to the people.
Who are the people? Is it the employers or the employees? Right. And the employers need to cater to the employees, and we need to make sure that all funnels down to the employee level to keep it as simple as possible, easy to use, get the technology working together as we do between payroll and workers' comp when we can put it on a pay-as-you-go basis, and then integrating the other automated pieces to it also. It works really nice.
Yeah. Being people-centric and having conversations, which we've talked a bunch about thus far, very important. Getting to the next phase of things, really good process of execution. I'm coming off of one of the most exciting softball wins I've had in a long time last night.
Nice.
So, me, softball and golf, things that I love to do. But, just think of, a lot of times I think in terms of sports analogies, and golf and softball being the genesis of a lot of that.
I have to check on PGA Championship. That's now you know which day we're recording this.
Strike that from the record. No, but the idea in baseball and softball, you have all the folks out in the field. Before every pitch, you have to think, what am I going to do if the ball's hit to me? Because if you wait for the crack of the bat, and a lot of times this is relatable to HR and the payroll world and the insurance world, right? If you wait for the crack of the bat, it's usually too late. Like you might make the right play, you might do what you got to do, but your chances are significantly less
Right.
than when you think, what am I going to do if the ball's hit to me? And in our world, it's just a matter of having the conversation, getting to know the story of the business owner and what makes them tick and where they are and where they want to go. But then being able to know, okay, now I got the ball's been hit to me. Who am I throwing it to?
Sure.
Who am I bringing into the play?
Right.
And that's one of those that walk off 13-12 last night. Just really had me had the right mindset.
It's great that you can find time for it, especially now that the weather's getting nicer. It's awesome to be able to be outside and execute in such a great fashion. So congratulations on a nice win. You talk about technology and integration and who you're going to throw it to. I've been working on a possibility. There's companies out there, ones that I'm interviewing right now, that help streamline. They act as consultants, but they know the technology that we use in the insurance space. Mm-hmm. Because if I tell you my tech stack costs me $5,000 a month, I'm not kidding. For a small business, that's a lot of money. Yeah. And it's sometimes it doesn't. Not everybody's talking to one another. Yeah. And I don't have the time to figure out how to get everybody to talk to one another. So there's companies out there that I'm working to interview to bring in that know the insurance business and know the tech stacks that are potentially out there to make it better, which again, at the end of the day, makes it better for all of our customers and employees. I want to make my employees' lives better too, by bringing tech to be able to support their efforts so they can do more FaceTime when it comes down to it.
It goes back to people in process before the products, and you mentioned Salesforce before. That's a key example of what you just said.
Right.
Salesforce, flagship CRM system, customer relationship management. People use it all the time in a lot of different industry verticals. But a lot of times businesses that take it on will think, hey, I license Salesforce, I have it, I'm good to go. Well, how are you going to implement it? Oh, we'll hire a couple of hourly employees to come in, they'll figure it out.
Right.
And it's just like a lot of people, that's when they realize that a lot of the money that gets spent with putting a stack like that together and a solution like that together is in who you pay to implement it. And
Sure.
that's all about getting to know the business and what's important to them, right, and what's important to their clients, their customers, but also their employees, and being able to deliver it with as much ease as possible.
Keeping it simple. So now I'm gonna switch gears. Let's go. I want to learn more about your podcast. You started your podcast early COVID. You're on talkradio.nyc. Tell me a little bit about who you're interviewing and what you have going on with the podcast. Who do you have coming up next? I've been a guest, so I think I get one of those awards for being a great guest.
You do, absolutely. So, started during the pandemic. Always Friday with Steven Frey, your SMB guy, on talkradio.nyc, 11 a.m. Eastern time on Fridays. I was always told I had a face for radio, so really wanted to take advantage of that. In all candor, I had spent a lot of time over the last 10 years doing some national account work and flying around the country. And you can't be everywhere at once, right? Especially if you're covering a lot of territory. I was using virtual meetings fairly early on. So when the pandemic hit, it was something that I was already familiar with and came natural and was just, knocking things out as if really nothing had changed. And just began to feel like the calls that I was having, whether they were with internal partners, external strategic partners, end user clients, or all of the above, there was some great thought and content being produced from it. So around the time I had that thought, I met the executive producer of talkradio.nyc, and we talked about putting a show together. So nice. Interviewing small, medium-sized business leaders as well as their trusted advisors on a weekly basis, really trying to get some stories, some perspective, and then also maybe some ability for connections, whether it's me with them with me, or them with the whole audience, or right, other guests that I've interviewed within the couple of years that it's been going on. So September will be 2 years.
Wow. And
it's just I know you feel the same thing with what you're doing with End Insurance. It's great to be able to amplify your voice and the voice of your partners and the folks that you're working with, but also be able to generate some great content.
Right. And it's all about content, right? You don't have a YouTube channel. I don't know why. You have great content, but you're not sharing it well enough. We'll work on that. But at the end of the day, it's right. You're a subject matter expert. you know the right people in different spaces, right? And you're able to share that with the smallest viable audience and or the world, right? Whoever cares to, participate and listen and be educated. Anytime I listen to one of your podcasts, I email myself. I take notes by sending myself emails.
Me too.
Right. So I grab my phone and I'll send myself an email so that it sits in my inbox so that I remember something, because I'll forget so quickly. But I'll do that. I'll be listening to your show and I'm like, oh, you had a cybersecurity expert on who wrote a book, and I went right to her website, downloaded the free ebook. I forget her name, but there was a great conversation that you had, and that actually prompted me to reach out to my managed service provider, my MSP that I use, Two River Computer, and we set up a new backup system for all of our data. Like, we're even backing up our Google Workspace, so our emails are backed up in 3 different places, right? She used a method of 3-2-1, 3 backups, 2 on-site, 1 off-site, right? I see, I remember things. And that's how I have it set up. I've got 3 backups in a backup system of even our Google accounts, which is like, why would I back up my email? It's Google, that should be fine. Well, if something happens or I have an employee that goes rogue and does something silly, I have that backed up. Then for 30 days, I can go back and find everything at that time. And have a screenshot of what their system looks like, so I'm watching everything, although we're really not. But if shit hits the fan, then I have everything, and I can make it portable if I want to make it go with me. I mean, this system is, the size of, a cinder block. Doesn't weigh that much, and I could pick it up and take it with me if there was ever an issue. And we had a guest from Serpro on and talking about hurricane season, and I can pick up my data and take that in my laptop wherever I need to go, and I'll have everything, and we'll hopefully be able to restore and get back to work as quickly as possible, because that's the goal, right? So that's one of my processes for my restoration and my get back to business when something happens, is having that redundant backup or multiple backups to be able to do that. So see, I learned something from your podcast. It just cost me a lot of money, though.
and I heard some of the content from that show as well with John from Serpro, and I think about it as my Armageddon bag usually. It's at the corner of the room to grab it. But no, I mean, business continuity planning, disaster recovery planning, and these are topics that have been conversations of mine with business owners for years, right. But they look a little different now than they did years ago,
right.
And again, the more things change, the more they stay the same in some aspects. But as it relates to cybersecurity and all of that nowadays, it's a totally different world. We're completely dependent on technology,
and it's a matter of when you have a breach or an issue that puts you out of business, right? It's a when, and it's going to happen. If it hasn't happened to all of us, it's currently happening to all of us, and we just don't know about it because the criminals are always a step ahead of everything that we're doing. Not to be doom and gloom here. We want to talk about good business process, but being prepared for things to go wrong is super important, whether you're in retail, service, or any other type of business.
Yeah, and it's I'm not really in the business of scaring business owners or threatening them that something is going to happen, but there's definitely the idea of calculated risk and trial by fire. Right. And you're right. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Right.
So a lot of the advice that Kathy from my show and some of the other folks that I've spoken to about cybersecurity and business continuity planning is they'll tell you need to think like a criminal a little bit. And
it sounds fun.
It sounds fun. If you picture the yacht out in the middle of the ocean.
I just need a yacht.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody got a yacht I can borrow? That'd be a great place to do an on-location podcast if we had great waterfront so putting that out there to the YouTube universe. If you have a yacht that I can borrow to bring a camera to, and you want to be interviewed, make it happen.
Yeah, I'll bring the mics. I'll come too.
I'll bring the cocktails also. I mean, we'll make an event out of it. It'll be a good time. So we really didn't talk about HCM too much, which was kind of the plan today. But you are in the payroll and card processing and human capital management business, as you call it today.
Yeah.
What's changed in that space over the last couple of years? Let's spend a couple minutes talking about just that, what employers should know and be able to do with respect to managing their employees and making sure obviously everybody gets paid. You want to get paid as a business owner, your employees want to get paid as your employees, and that's where, Heartland Payment Systems or Solutions? Systems?
Heartland Payroll Solutions, Heartland Payment Systems.
Oh, there you go. See, I got it right twice. Comes into play and, can help a business out. So talk a little bit about, the products that you sell after, to help people with their processes so you can actually make a living.
Yeah. So with respect to the two big sides to Heartland, there's the payroll HR side, which you can think of that as the movement of money and information between the company and its employees. And then there's the payment side, the movement of money and information between the company and its clients, its customers, its vendors, all of the above. So no matter what, with both of those big buckets, there's kind of some basic needs that business owners have. They might not need everything that's available in the Heartland suite of services and solutions, but there's basic need. If you have a business and you have employees, or even if you don't have employees, you still check two of the three boxes of having payroll HR needs. Right. So, having the payroll service knocked out for you. A lot of times over the years, people have had their accountants do it. Most accountants that you talk to out there don't necessarily want to be in that business. Very few of them want to still be in that business. They'll outsource it to providers like Heartland in a heartbeat, no pun intended. But just to really take the burden off of their shoulders and to automate the process a little bit with some of the technology enablement. And then on the payment side, most every business out there, even ones that traditionally only took cash, are now taking credit cards. And there's the whole discussion of surcharging also, now that there's
cash discount.
Yeah. Well, surcharging, cash discount too. They're related but different, but yes, like there's basic needs around all of that. So, but then there's multiple levels deeper in each bucket. So, on the payroll HR side, it really is everything from hire through retire. So applicant tracking systems. People talk about the Great Resignation and how difficult it is to find good help. It's not just in the restaurant, hospitality, leisure space, which I know you know plenty about. Sure. Trying to find folks that are going to really stay with the business. It's every industry nowadays as a result of largely the pandemic. But the Great Resignation is a real thing. But also being able to streamline the whole process and find the right talent and get qualified candidates. Right. Targeted for you is a whole industry in and of itself. There's multiple providers and technologies out there that's all they do. Right. So, having Heartland Hire doing applicant tracking systems, great. Electronic onboarding, being able to screen people up front for tax credits. There's one called Work Opportunity Tax Credit, where if an employee fits 9 different classifications, the employer, after the employee's worked 120 hours, triggers the credit. So if you don't file for it within the first 28 days of the person's employment, though, you can't get it. Right. So those are all just little types of tidbits where a lot of times, the phrase "you don't know what you don't know" comes up. I know that's an overcooked one a little bit, but it's having it as part of the steps 1, 2, 3, 4 of this is what happens. So electronic onboarding, port them over to the payroll side. There's the concept of time and attendance record keeping, which some businesses need, some don't. But the ones that need it very often really need it, especially if they're labor intensive or they have trucks out in the field. The Heartland time and attendance system is geotagged and geofenced. Wow. So being able to really keep tabs on folks so they can't punch in and out from their couch while they're playing video games and drinking beer. That concept is, I know, hate to spoil the party. But, and then on the payment side, it's not just credit card processing. Merchant processing is, something that people think of as a commoditized industry, something that's about, if you could do it cheaper for me, great. Heartland happens to be one of few direct processors out there as opposed to brokered solutions. So, something where can definitely get aggressive on fees, but it's not just about that. There's e-commerce solutions, there's POS systems, point of sale, there's invoicing needs, anything that's ACH, moving back and forth between vendors, all of that stuff. There's even capital lending from Heartland. A lot of times I'll refer to my bank partners that I work with for those types of needs. But Heartland Capital, there's something that they could do, get loans for small businesses. Neat. So really, it's not just limited to the couple of basic needs. There's a whole bunch of wants and wish lists in there too. Right. But really, it comes back to really getting to know the business and having the conversation, both getting to know them personally, individually, sure, and then how everything applies to the business world, because usually paints a clearer picture of which aspects of the service they need,
Right.
a little bit of the customer journey. I like to begin with the end in mind, but there's a lot to be learned from the journey.
Yeah, so I mean, then that's the same, way we've structured the podcast conversation today. We didn't talk about the business products until the very end of our conversation. Yeah. And that same way that you approach, prospective, clients of yours and mine is what are you doing? How can we help you? And then, oh, by the way, these are the products that you're going to purchase so you can fund the work that we do as consultants and professionals in the space that we're in. So we're going to find the solutions, and that's how we're going to help you out. And, at the end of the day, we're going to save you money on your total cost of processing or your total cost of risk when it comes to insurance or moving money, right? That's the goal. And that total cost is not the dollar amount on an invoice. It's everything else that goes into it. The Heartland tech stack can streamline significantly, save you labor hours, so long as you have the right person to help you set it up and engage with. And unfortunately, it's not the guy that's fresh out of college that's knocking on doors trying to sell you payroll and taking 25 cents off per employee, to hope to make the first sales. And those guys are good too, because we need them to learn. But at the end of the day, working with a professional like Steven is really going to help your business go a long way. So Steven, thank you so much for joining me today on the microphones without your sunglasses on. You can put them back on now. And we'll talk soon.
Appreciate it, Aaron. Great to be here. Great to see you.
Thank you.